Today on the politics of politics.
Are you winning your fight with the National Treasury?
Oh, there's no fight there. There's no fight. It's been a very busy period for the Electoral Commission. We obviously always say that to prepare for a general election, there's no way also we can give less than credible election outcome, because that erodes legitimacy of those who come out of this election. So there's a lot at stake for us.
Can someone who has a criminal who has been convicted of a crime and served time, can they appear on the ballot as a presidential candidate?
Now, remember our ballot.
Hi everyone, I'm your host Neola Khabo, and welcome to the Politics of Politics. In this show, we delve into the belly of South African politics. We do that by engaging with political, business and civic leaders in order to inform and empower you, especially leading up to the 2024 general elections and beyond. And today, we're coming to you from the election house in Centurion. We're going to be speaking to the Deputy CEO of the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa, Mr. Mawethu Mosery. I can't wait for that discussion. But before we speak to Mr. Mosery, here's my political agenda. The political agenda is a segment of the show where I share with you my thoughts about something that I picked up in the media or something that I believe is quite significant and I've got an opinion on it. And today I want to talk to you about the new MMC for Finance in Tshwane, Mrs. Jacqueline Ace. Mrs. Jacqueline Ace takes over from Peter Sutton, who was the previous MMC for Finance, essentially the chief financial officer of a troubled city that is practically bankrupt. Now, there's two things that worries me about the appointment of Mrs. Ace. The first one is that she has no experience or qualification in accounting, okay? She has a very strong marketing background, and at some point she was an image consultant. I'm trying to understand that when you have a city that is almost at the brink of bankruptcy, and you've got a party in the form of a DA that talks about meritocracy all the time and attacks the ANC on their cadre deployment policy, as well as fielding incompetent candidates into municipal offices. I'm trying to understand, why would the DA go out and do the same? If this was a black woman, unqualified, getting into a position of MMC of Finance in any city, it would have been called another affirmative action and another cadre deployment appointment. Now that she's a white woman, what do we call that? Next up, Mr. Mosery. As promised, we've got Mr. Mawethu Mosery, who is the Deputy CEO of the Independent Electoral Commission. Mr. Mosery, thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me, and good to join you and have a conversation with you.
Now we're joining you because we are in your building. So today we're not coming from Arise Studios. We're coming, they say live and direct. From Election House.
From Election House. So that we tell you all what we have in store for the South Africans.
Absolutely. Yes. How has it been? It's been I would imagine that for you as the IEC, it's been a very interesting few months, especially because everyone is in anticipation of the announcement that we all expect the president to make around the election date. So, between friends, we can switch off the cameras. When are the elections?
It's been a very busy period for the Electoral Commission. We obviously always say that to prepare for a general elections, it's a good 18 to 24 months. Already in some of our planning sessions, we're starting to talk 2026, how that election would look like.
Yes.
So this one, in our view, it's almost delivered. We almost there. Indeed, we do believe that the announcement of the election date is imminent. In the next 7 to 14 days, it will be announced. And we do hope that every South African who's eligible to vote will participate. In the last few months, we focused on voter registration.
Correct, yes.
So when the election is announced, we end voter registration.
Okay.
We begin with candidate nomination. So we've had to prepare systems for candidate nomination.
Yes.
And as everyone knows in the country that there are changes with candidates, we are now going to have independents. We've introduced a third ballot. So all of those things, the required systems to be prepared for it.
Yes.
So we've been busy with that in the background whilst we were driving voter registration. And we are satisfied with the outcome of voter registration.
What has been the outcome? Because we're going to get into like the meat of it, but I think there's been what, 2 voter registration drives so far. How has that been? I mean, there's always been a concern around the turnout, especially for young people, in terms of their participation. How satisfied are you with how the turnout went?
Let's start by saying we are satisfied with the kind of campaign we've driven, and with the number of support entities that were in the space with us.
Yes.
Not necessarily political parties. We had NGOs, other professional bodies doing their bit. We had business doing their bit. And certainly media that we rely on. The various media houses have driven their own campaigns on voter registration. So overall, as a country, we've done well. The outcome is 27.6 million on the voters roll.
Yes.
It's a feat we are achieving for the first time as a country. Since we started building a voters roll in 1998, it has never reached 27 million. So it's a big up to South Africans. And obviously celebrating our 30 years of democracy this year. It's one of the key features that we've reached this. We've also seen growth in the segment of the voters roll for overseas voters. Now sitting at 44,000 registered across various countries. We've seen also a very interesting development, the increase of registration in countries like Mauritius, which was low at 100 or so voters, suddenly shot up to just over 1,000. So there's been good campaigns and good platforms for voters to register.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that. The DA took you to court, though, for that overseas registration. And the complaint was that there isn't enough places where people can go register in most of these countries. Where is that matter, and how have you guys dealt with it?
The matter was only introduced to court yesterday, so it's a new matter. We still to look at papers, whether we will actually oppose or not oppose. But basically, it's too new in our space. We'll look at that and have a better view very soon. But previous 2 weeks, they wrote to us on the same basis, and we said, in terms of the law, we can only use designated South African consulates or embassies for purposes of voting, because the law directs us that. It says at the mission of South Africa. Secondly, we have been working and planning on at least one mission in many of the countries to be used for that, particularly where there's an estimated population of South Africans. So we provide for that, and I think we've provided sufficiently. 120 countries where we will be operating and allowing South Africans.
But the
to
complaint
vote.
is that you are, for instance, in Australia, there's a South African mission in Perth, but not in Brisbane. And the distance between Brisbane and Perth is...
Well, the logic of it is like voting stations here at home. You don't just put a voting station anywhere you like. You align it to various criteria and considerations.
Yes.
So is the case overseas. Overseas, it's quite critical that we are logical about it. We say, is voting for Australians or for South Africans? Once you say South Africans, so it can happen on South African soil in Australia, which means it has to be at a mission, grounds or mission building, the whole voting process.
How worried are you about that court case, jeopardizing your preparations for the elections? I remember 4 years back, when there was a court case around, and it might be even longer actually, around the addresses where people stay, etc. And it was a big thing.
Oh, it still is a big thing.
Yes, I remember. Maybe for the benefit of our viewers, you can maybe go into a little bit about what have you done with that issue of addresses ever since, and how worried are you in terms of this court case by the DA delaying the elections?
It's definitely not going to delay the election, and we do hope that the court will hear it as soon as practicable.
The lawyers say expeditiously.
And if we get an answer in time and the court says provide, we will provide. I don't think it's yes, it will be a challenge. It will have impact on resources, but I don't think it's something we would want to challenge and take it to different other platforms. We've got to deliver the election now in the next 4 to 5 months. So delaying things is not going to help us or South Africans. Let's just deliver the election. So in that sense, we will prepare for it. Yes, it won't be easy to prepare for it. Now, if you go back to the address court challenge, I think on eve of election, we face various types of court challenges. We had another one in 2021, which was threatening to direct us to reprint millions of ballots on how we had presented one of the political parties. We were ready to do it.
Was it the Ekurhuleni guys?
No, it was the guys with the green logo. And,
Action SA.
And we didn't put their logo.
You didn't put the name. You put the logo, but not the name.
No, the name and logo was
yes,
the same. That. And they thought that when we asked on our registration forms.
Ndade Herman Mashaba is still blaming you for not getting bigger numbers in 2019, by the way.
No, blaming the commission is an easy thing to do, even if the campaign doesn't align to that. At the end of the day, parties must focus on voters. It doesn't really help to focus on the Electoral Commission and blame the Commission or complain about the Commission. It doesn't help also for parties who spend all their time saying there's something wrong with the electoral system. It's now given its law, it's regulated, and where we are, likelihood of you changing it as a contestant, almost zero. And I think we need to just teach our leaders and political activists in parties, stop attacking the commission, concentrate on your campaign. Get people out there, get people to believe in your manifesto, talk more about your manifesto than, but in terms of the commission, we always say to parties, yes, you must watch what we do at the voting station. That's why the law provides for party agents. That's why the law also provides for free access to media, access to domestic observers and international observers. All of those eyes are there to make sure that the electoral staff do not do things that are not prescribed in law or things that show levels of partiality rather than impartiality. So there's enough safeguards to protect the election on the day and the days after that no one will doubt the outcome of the election.
But Mr. Mosery, you're saying that it doesn't help blaming the commission. But the commission itself has not covered itself in glory at some point, though. I mean, in 2019, there were ballot boxes that were allegedly found on the side of the road in Alexander. Surely there, the commission has to take some form of blame.
Oh, yes. We always say when we return used ballots to our storage, we must take utmost care and we must ensure we follow protocol. Because for voters out there and citizens out there who were not closely monitoring the process, they could easily be misled. But we can safely say to you what was found in Alex on that day had been counted. In fact, when that happened, the result was already announced and public, signed.
But that's immaterial, though.
No, I'm coming to that.
Sure.
And by that, it had been even announced to the public with the signatures of the same political parties who were there complaining. Now, when we further investigated, we actually found that it was at our correct storage point.
Okay.
It is the mischief of those individuals who were representing those parties that complained about that.
That wanted to create some form of doubt.
Who wanted to create some form of doubt. They went in there and started interfering with the storage of election.
But how could they? I mean, I want to know that my vote, once it's in the ballot, it's very safe. Because the problem is this. Even if you say it was counted already and the results were announced, if any of the political parties was to query the elections and challenge the outcome, and we had to go into a recount, we now have a problem because there's other ballot papers somewhere in Alex. That's really where, for me, I think the issue is.
Certainly very correct. For instance, in our own books, had those party activists not interfered with that storage, we will have everything intact as it should be. So here it's a disruption and interference.
Were there any repercussions for those
Oh,
party
yes,
agents?
yeah. We put police on it and it becomes a criminal matter.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get arrest, sometimes we never get arrest or an update of what actually happened. But we've been saying to parties, if you disrupt and interfere with electoral process, we have no choice but to ask police to intervene, and because you're committing a criminal act. And why I say as a voter you could have a level of comfort, we are not condoning anything else, because we must always note it that in South Africa you don't move uncounted ballots. You vote here, you count here, and there's a result here before anything can leave the station. In the presence of all observers and all party agents who were part of this voting station, which is an arrangement of our electoral process that ensures that the result that is written here is agreed to by all who were observing. In fact, we make them sign to confirm that what came out of the box is what is stated on the results, sort of receipt from that station. So in that way, it gives that. But I agree with you certainly that
it didn't make you look good.
It doesn't make us look good. I think we had another case in Bushbuck Ridge.
And the reason why I'm asking about consequences for those people is linked to, from my side, I haven't seen the IEC, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I've been disappointed at how you have not come out strongly against the likes of the former President Jacob Zuma and Ace Magashule, who've basically come out and say, we know how the elections are rigged. who were part of the ANC for a very long time. Now, the IEC is one of the most important institutions in our country in terms of how we need to protect the integrity of the elections. And for me, for people like that, and whether they're coming out, firstly, they didn't give any facts, right?
Certainly.
But then they created a perception, which is a breeding ground, for whatever it is that they may want to complain about later. But I haven't seen you coming out very strongly to say, Ace or Jacob Zuma, you're talking BS. There's no such a thing. You guys were there all along. Why are you complaining now?
Well, it's not our way of doing business to go tit for tat with parties and party leaders, particularly in the public domain. Yes, here and there, we refute these allegations, a number of them. Even those ones, I think maybe in your language, we were too soft when we refuted them. But
it's okay. Jackie uses a stronger language. You can incorporate her into your communications too.
Yeah, so we basically said secrecy of the ballot is a must for South Africa, and there's no way we can today, because there's a new political party or a new candidate, change from having a secret ballot. It has safeguarded so many individuals and citizens and so many families just by ensuring that the vote is secret. And I don't think we should change any soon. It's a global practice as well to have a secret ballot. There's no chance of us having a public and open ballot. I don't think we will ever get that. Now, the second part that we refuted was that there's been rigging because of a secret ballot. No. You see, when we talk about rigging of elections, we talk about the transparency of elections as the commission. And hence, we talk about who can sit and observe the election and be there throughout the process. Basically, even from candidate nomination, from voter registration, through to when we give you the outcome of the election, it's open for anyone to view. And for people to come now and say, we rigged, but they are not giving us something, it's people who are just mudding the election.
I think the IEC needs a secret organization on the side that will go after these people.
You don't not a secret organization.
It must be an open one. But look, I'm saying that
by
because
the way,
the sanctity of the election is important.
Now we have a code of conduct.
Yes.
It comes into effect on a proclamation of the election. And certainly, if they were to repeat during that period, we will have a different mechanism to deal with them.
Is Jacob Zuma going to be on the ballot? He's a convicted.
I do not
he's
know.
Convicted. You should know. Doesn't your own conduct say?
Let me be technical about it.
Okay.
Why I say I do not know is because no party has done a nomination as yet on our system. So it would be presumptuous of us to think that his new party or his party will put him as a candidate.
Okay, so I'll rephrase the question.
Let's wait for that.
I'll rephrase the question.
Yes.
Can someone who has a criminal, who has been convicted of a crime and served time, can they appear on the ballot as a presidential candidate?
Now, remember, our ballot for parties doesn't carry the candidates for that party. It carries the party name. It's only independents who will have their names on the ballot. So that's one thing. The second part is our constitution makes provision on who can be elected into a representative position. And it outlines all of that. But in particular, it excludes three categories of people. It excludes any person declared of being of an unsound mind, means there's mental illness.
But we got the ANC in the ballot, so I don't understand how that works.
I don't know how you refer it to them. The second one is people declared insolvent.
Okay.
So those cannot stand for public.
I didn't know the insolvent part.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, we had a case in Tswane, I think 2022, 23, of issues relating to insolvency, and they were dealing with them.
Okay.
And then the third one is a person who's been sentenced to imprisonment for more than 12 months without an option of a fine. That person cannot stand, even if that person has served time. On return, that person must have spent 5 years after returning. So
of rehabilitation.
Not rehabilitation. You served your term.
Yes.
Your time of release came.
5 years.
Cooling off period, 5 years.
Okay.
It doesn't talk about the type of offense and things like those. It's just like that.
But then are you then saying the MK Youth Brigade is confused then, because they planning to march to where we are now at the election house? They're planning to march here because their slogan is "No Zuma, no election."
I haven't heard that, but they've been here before, so.
Did you make them coffee?
Oh, yeah. We are very hospitable because we treat all political parties as our clients. But certainly there's need for mutual respect and orderly conduct in this. And we certainly would not shy away from protecting the institution and its neighbors plus property of the institution. So in that context, as long as people believe that we are either on the wrong or... But you can't make demands on what is legally prescribed. So for me, if the issue was that prison term for them, they must change the constitution. It's a constitutional problem.
It goes
in
beyond
fact,
your scope.
some media houses brand it as the IEC said, or the other politicians say the IEC said. We didn't say that. We just said the constitution says this, and it's up to you to make your deductions. There may be many other candidates. Now, we are also going to have what we call a period of objection to candidates. So basically, anyone can nominate their members the way they want them. When we've concluded that they satisfy the initial requirements, we're going to put it into the public domain. And those who feel certain people shouldn't stand, then they must come forward and do an objection, and we'll deal with the objections.
I mean, talking about all of this, and I mean, it's silly season, so everyone has got an opinion about the IEC. I mean, the president of the EFF, in one of his press conferences, mentioned that they funded their manifesto, or sorry, not their manifesto, their celebration, their 10-year celebration, through the money that the party funding that came from the IEC, which the IEC was trying to send to the ANC by mistake, and they also got the money. Now, my question is really not per se on his statement, but it's on, I'd like you to comment on party funding, how it works, both in terms of what is the role of the IEC, all the way up to parties declaring their funding.
Well, party funding has been with us. This is its third financial year in operation. So we now pretty understand it. There's three parts to party funding. There's the part where political parties all of them, all 600 of them on our register, must declare their financials and who funded them for this and that, which is coupled with also declarations by those who fund political parties. So those who've been funding a number of parties are now used to declaring. So there's a threshold of an amount of 100,000. Once you give 100,000, you show. Two, there's a maximum any person can contribute to a party. It's about 15 million per annum. So all of those things are governed on that one part. There's a second part which deals with the money we get from Treasury, which is now funding of represented political parties. Okay. So it's those already sitting in legislature or in parliament who get a share of that. And that's where the money that is referred to came from. Yes. The state gives us a certain amount annually, and we distribute it in terms of the law. We do about 70% on equitable share, which means we give equally, and 30% on proportionality. Depending on how many seats you have, we give you an amount. So there's that second part of money from the state and distributed to parties. The third one is what we call the multi-party fund, where we expected businesses, private individuals to make a contribution to this fund. Here, there's no limitation. You can make as little a donation as 100 rands, and the maximum could be 100 million. You can make a contribution. Whatever you contribute to this fund, we distribute it equally on the same basis to parties as the state funds to parties of represented political parties. So we haven't attracted a lot of donations here, but yes, we've had donations in the past 3 years. And there are commitments of some big corporates who are coming for the third time to make a contribution into that fund. It's a fund that provides a safe platform for corporate in particular. Because whatever you put in there, it's given to all parties. It doesn't then brand your business to be partisan to party so-and-so or party so-and-so. So it's a good enough platform to come to the multi-party.
So it was not, I could get it. Now, Mawethu, the issue that is super important, the free and fairness of the election. The Minister of Home Affairs came out and mentioned quite a big number of immigrants or non-South Africans rather, that have somehow found their way onto the national register. Now that is a big worrying factor. I don't know what the number is because it keeps changing. I had 2 million, the other time I had 800,000, so I don't know what that number is. How do we trust that the people that are voting are only South Africans when you've got close to 2 million, if that number is to be believed, of non-South Africans that are carrying South African IDs?
It's a very difficult scenario, that one. But let's start by saying, if on the population register you are not designated as a South African citizen, you will not be on our voters roll, because our voters roll is based on your ID number. So there are non-South Africans who carry a similar document, but it doesn't classify them as South African citizens. I think they have at Home Affairs a different classification for that. So you've got to be a South African citizen. And that's the only way we can guarantee that only South Africans are participating in this election. To the extent that a person has successfully embedded themselves as a citizen, we will not be able to pick it up.
And that is the difficult part.
And it's not that difficult.
Well, because you don't have your own system. You rely on Home Affairs, and Home Affairs over the past few years have proven that for 5 rands you can be a citizen.
Oh no.
So,
as far as we know, people who get those documents fraudulently are never successful. What they have in hand and what is on the database is not the same. So in that way, we have a lot of trust on our population register, even with all of these possible entries that are questionable. It's still 98, 99% trustworthy to give us those who are South African.
So the 2 million number does not give you sleepless nights?
Not at all, and we don't believe it is so.
Okay. Well, the Minister of Home Affairs says there's 2 million people that are illegal immigrants that are holding our IDs.
It's very difficult for me to answer you meaningfully sitting here without the benefit of getting the context under which the minister spoke of the 2 million. It could have been something else, but not directly classification as a citizen. So I would want the context of that conversation for me to say it gives us doubt or it worries us. At this stage, we have no doubt on the population register.
Yeah, okay. Are you winning
save also what we know about in areas that border Swaziland, that border Lesotho, because of the cross-border relations and lifestyle.
Yeah.
That is even beyond Home Affairs, the way it works. I've worked for many years in KZN. I know very well what happens in that border area.
Close to it.
And so is on the Mpumalanga side. So there are those circumstances, but then we have political parties with us when we do voter registration. They have every right to object to a person who shouldn't be registering.
You're not talking about Mpumalanga. I mean, one of the things that the IEC does, which most people don't know, is you also determine the number of seats in provincial legislature, right? And Mpumalanga has like for this upcoming elections in terms of that adjustment. I mean, their provincial legislature, I think it had about like 30 odd seats and moving to 50. That's like almost over 50%. Besides, why is that though? I mean, Gauteng is moving to 80, which is the maximum that a provincial legislature could have. Right? But why is that Mpumalanga number so high?
You've got it correct. The Constitution gives a threshold.
Yes.
Minimum is 30 seats per provincial legislature and maximum is 80.
Yeah.
And Gauteng for the longest time had about 70 odd. So now they are at a maximum. KZN was always at a maximum, so there's no change. In Northern
Northwest
Cape,
is also a big change.
Gone up by about 8 or so to 40 something. So also is Northern Cape, because the population is way below the 30 seats, so we can only designate the 30 seats. Now, Mpumalanga, it's really about voter registration and your population. Remember, we had a census in 2022, outcome of which has given us these population figures. And what we've now gazetted as the determination of provincial legislature seats is based on that population register.
Last question for you, and that Mawethu. So, are you winning your fight with the National Treasury?
Oh, there's no fight there.
Well, semantics.
There's no fight there.
I mean, your budget is 2.2 billion, right?
Correct.
They wanted or are cutting it by 240 million. That's a big number to cut.
There's absolutely no fight there.
Are they going to give you money?
Oh yeah, we are sufficiently funded to deliver this election. Look at the commitment on the registration.
If you're not, would you admit?
Yes, why not? because
Well, of course, the politicians will get upset with you. And
we
they'll
can
send you a
never
long email
allow.
that says you said something on a show.
We can never allow this country to run a mediocre and
Election
below
process.
standard election process. Maybe I should brag, Neo.
Go ahead.
We are one
Go
of
ahead.
the best commissions in the world.
I know that.
And we are currently also being the global chair of the Association of World Election Management Bodies. So there's a lot of stake on the integrity of this Electoral Commission of South Africa.
Yes.
In the continent, we play a number of supportive leading roles that makes us the key exemplar for many other countries. So there's no way we would compromise that global stature. There's no way we can compromise the experience of elections by ordinary South Africans. There's no way also we can give less than credible election outcome, because that erodes legitimacy of those who come out of this election. So there's a lot at stake for us as a commission, as professionals within the commission, to go with less than ideal budget.
No, absolutely. And I mean, you talk to the president most times. Do you get a sense that he's worried that he's about to be opposition?
Oh, no. We don't discuss party politics there.
I know.
It's really a constitutional body.
Yes.
And it is always very clear what our agenda is as a constitutional body. We went to him to talk and consult on the election date, which is the legal responsibility we have. And we have no qualms with the conversations there.
And Mawethu, I like the work that you guys are doing. This institution is very important. People died so that this institution can exist. And I've always been proud of the fact that we've always had men of integrity always at the top of this institution. So I'd like you guys to be out there more. I get tired of hearing previous chairpersons and CEOs of IEC being the ones that are being interviewed. Do you guys reject interviews? Why are they always calling the previous guys on? Every time you hear conversation, or not every time, maybe that's an exaggeration.
Most of the time.
Sometimes when you hear this conversation, you still find that the Terry Zilani is speaking, etc. Again, he doesn't want to let go.
Well, we actually don't get people as a commission and as a statutory entity. Obviously, if you come and ask us, we will grant the interviews. And I think if I go back looking at 2019, 2021, and even before that, media houses came back to us to compliment us for being available. But sometimes some media houses tend to not like the fact that we are going to set the record straight. If you want correct information, unbiased, definitely your point of call is the Electoral Commission. If we can't give you an interview when you want it, we will give you an option. There's no way we can completely say, no, we don't want to talk to you.
Mawethu, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. I think we definitely have to do this again, especially after the proclamation. I think there will be a lot of questions. People will be wanting to find out how big is that ballot? Is it going to be a book? Is it going to be a paper? Before we let you go, actually, how big is that ballot as it stands now? People are worried. Should they be worried?
Yes, they should be worried. First, they must be worried that there's 3 ballots.
Okay.
2 ballots for the national parliament and 1 ballot for the province.
Okay.
We never had 2 ballots for national parliament. So it is worth people following your production to get to
our
know
podcast, The Politics of Politics.
The politics of
intricate
politics.
guide to South African politics.
So they must follow you and watch your podcast, because we will come back to talk to you about the 3 ballots, how they come about.
Absolutely.
Now, how long the ballot and how big? Last election, 2019, we had 48 political parties contesting. So before you add all the new political parties, you must first add the independent candidates. At this stage, we don't know how many might come up. If another 50 of them are successful candidates, it puts us on 98 contestants.
My good sir, you've got elections to run. I don't want to waste too much of your time. Thank you so much for your time. That was Tate Mawethu Mosery, who is the Deputy CEO of the Independent Electoral Commission. We definitely will be talking to you again and bringing you all the updates from the IEC. This is quite an important institution in our country. Your vote is very important. You cannot want change if you are not willing to invest in that future. And that investment sits here. Number 2K would have said you are sleeping on the IEC. Don't sleep on the IEC. Go to the website, find out how to vote and how to register yourself. Remember, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is always interested on you. Follow us on all our social media platforms. Thank you for watching.